There we go.
Right.
That was good. Woo! Woo! Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Defying All Odds Podcast. This is your host, Jesse, with my co-host.
Rafa, you already know.
And today we have a very special guest coming to you live from Columbia University. He's a junior on the pre-medical track majoring in biology. Shout out my major, of course. Please welcome Mariono Martin.
Yo, yo, yo. How we doing, guys? How we doing?
So, Mariono, kind of just, tell us the viewers a little bit about yourself, kind of like where you come from and kind of like your origin story.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, my name is Mariano. I'm from Southern California, so all the way on the other side of the country, going to school at Columbia. Yeah, West Coast. Yeah, I mean, it's especially nice after my Dodgers beat the Yankees. No offense, Rafi, but you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Hey, you know what I'm saying? Hey, there you go.
He beat your Mets.
Okay.
He beat your Mets.
And he beat the Yankees.
SoCal on top, baby. SoCal on top.
Oh.
Nah, but jokes.
We're starting this on the wrong foot, bro. Continue, please.
But yeah, no, I mean, so yeah, I'm from California. Obviously over here studying biology on the pre-med track. My ambitions are to become an orthopedic surgeon and just help people, to be honest. A bit about my origin. I'm the first in my family to go to college, so I feel like that has a lot to do with my narrative. And yeah, I'm just trying to inspire those that come after me, my siblings and my cousins, and to really just flip the narrative of my family's lineage story. So
that's awesome. Okay. So, like you said, you came from the West Coast.
Yep, yes, sir.
And now you're here all the way on the other side of the country.
In New York
What
City.
is it like living? I mean, you were able to live these two cultures. I mean, it's. I went to California. I went to San Francisco, California, a few years back, and the difference is it's not super grand, but you can feel it.
Yeah.
What would you say when it comes to those two sides?
Yeah, I would definitely say like the biggest transition I would say is like definitely the culture, right? So I mean, New York City is definitely of like a very cultural, like they call it the melting pot, right?
Yeah.
No, I mean the Big Apple, city that never sleeps.
Yeah, exactly.
So many nicknames.
It has all of these like monikers, you know what I mean? And it really stands up to it. I can say like, compared to Los Angeles, it's completely different. I would say some of the things that are really different between the two is that I feel like in New York, like everyone is about business, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's a very, like the whole East Coast is very academic, very like business driven, everything's fast paced. Whereas I feel like back home in Cali, everything's a little more chill, a little more laid back, Mm-hmm. People are more like, oh, like let's go to the beach, let's do that, but it's a different vibe. But I'd say like, I feel like I'm living the best of both worlds, you know what I mean? Having the opportunity to have grown up in California, but then coming here, it really makes you grow to be more independent. And I feel like that's what I've noticed these last 3 years, just my independence. Like when I go back home, I feel more like, about my business. And it's like, I don't really like rely too much on the help of others so much because I'm just so used to, like figuring things out over here on my own.
There's definitely a lot of problem solving that goes on. I feel like I definitely felt kind of the same thing when I can't really speak about the West Coast. I've never been to the West Coast. But I know when I spent my summer in Pittsburgh, I knew that.
You're in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I knew that over there, a lot of people were saying that. Yeah, like I can't live in New York City because it's too fast for me, or like the pace is too fast. And I mean, when you grow up here your whole life, I mean, I guess like you're kind of just blinded to that. I mean, you have like your bias, right, where you're just so used to it.
Because you guys both grew up in the city.
Yeah, we're both born and raised in the city.
I hear the horns, the cars, all the noise, and I sleep like a baby.
That's crazy. I'll tell you what's crazy. So I mean,
I had a story about that.
Where I grew up, I grew up right across the street from Walker York Presbyterian, and that's a big hospital, and we hear ambulance sirens like 24/7. And I kid you not, what would help me go to sleep is when I'd count ambulance sirens. Like the amount of times I'd hear when I'm here, 1, 2, 3, boom, I'm knocked out sleeping. Mm-hmm. And to most people, when they used to visit my apartment, they'd be like, yo, how do you sleep with all these sirens? And I'm like
baby.
I mean,
little baby.
I've been doing it for 21 years. I can still keep, But
no, it's like funny you say, like when I first moved into Columbia, my dorm, it was across the street from Mount Sinai. So the very first night I could not get any sleep. It was
John
just
Jay.
like the ambulance. Yeah, exactly.
Shout out John Jay.
The ambulance, like all the blaring, and I was just like, dude, like how am I gonna deal with this? Like just like all the honking late at night. I'm like, dang, like these people don't give it a break. But it's different, man. It's unique. I like it. I definitely like it for sure.
What was your reason? I mean, again, you lived in Los Angeles, right? And there's a lot of great colleges out there on the West Coast. What wanted you to come over to Columbia and not pick something like, let's say, Stanford or something like that?
No, I mean, that's like a great question. And to be honest, I never, like if I would have told myself in like 7th grade, I'd be going to school in New York, I would have never believed it. To be honest, like when the time came, I really think, just how the cards fell in my lap, like the Lord really blessed me and I had a lot of options. So a bit about like my application process, you know, I did see myself maybe staying in California, like you said, maybe like a Stanford, USC, something like that. But when it came time to apply, more of the doors opened on the East Coast. I had the privilege of getting into schools like Yale, Columbia, you know, Brown, U Chicago, Johns Hopkins, you know, these other like really good schools that are just so far away from home. And what it came down to is the fact that these schools out of state were actually willing to pay more money, right? So to go to a school like USC, you know, a really good private school, I had the opportunity to get in, but I was gonna have to pay 15 grand more to go there, you know what I mean? Which is like right in my backyard than to be here at Columbia. So I was, you know what I mean? It was just a no-brainer. And I come from a low-income background, so a big thing to me is that I don't want to put my parents under any sort of like financial burden, especially unnecessary financial burden.
I completely agree with you. Like I remember going through the application process, I felt the same exact way. Like I got into both Cornell and Columbia. And so like going back to kind of that decision of like me staying in New York City, sure, there's a lot that goes into it. Like, you know, I'm born and raised in the city. I want to be with my family, but there's more that goes into just that decision. And like you said, it's creating and saving time from financial hardship for your family. I think that goes hand in hand.
Family for yourself.
The financial aid that you get here at Columbia is just immense. And I know, to be very frank, we're very blessed and very honored, right? Yeah. But at the same time, like, I always think back to, I can't wait for that day where I can just repay it back to them, and not just like, I'm not saying like just with my progress, but like think back to like, I've seen videos online where people are like, Mom, Dad, here's 40 grand. Like, and they're like, well, no. How could I take all this? And it's like, well, you got me here and now I'm trying to give back to you. Right. So that's like the big mama house. Exactly. That's the best feeling.
Exactly.
True.
But Mariano, so like, tell us a little bit, like kind of, I mean, obviously now you're here at Columbia, right? And you have a pretty interesting story in terms of, you know, getting here, being the first one in your family to attend college. What's that been like to kind of, I guess, carry that weight on your shoulder with your family as like you progress through your coursework and being on the pre-medical track to kind of inspire other people to do what you're doing?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's something that, you know, a lot of people don't think about. You know, it's just like, you know, in our every day-to-day lives, there's a lot of pressures that are put on to us, right? But what I think is, you know, a pressure that not a lot of people get to experience is like being in that position when like, you know, almost your entire family, you know, what you do, they're kind of like riding on you, you know what I mean? And it's like, you know, it can be challenging in the fact of like, you know, when things are stressful, you know, you don't really want to communicate that, you know, because you don't want to give your parents extra stress because, you know, they haven't been like in the same spot that you're in, right? So it's like they want to help you the best that they can and kind of push you to succeed, you know. But when you're going through like hardships, it's a little daunting to kind of like call home and be like, you know, I think like my schoolwork is going kind of challenging, or, you know, like, you know, this or that's going on. It can be challenging just because you want to keep in their perception, you know, like you got this, you know what I mean? You're like this, like, you know, this role model for your younger siblings or your cousins and all that sort of thing. So I think that, you know, there's a lot of weight that's carried, but at the same time, it's a beautiful opportunity, you know. Like I said, you know, my parents, they didn't even know what Columbia was until I applied, you know. Wow, so then, that's what I'm saying. So then like coming here and then just, you know, when I get to call home and tell my parents, you know, oh, you know, I'm doing this internship, or, you know, I'm a part of this club on campus. Like Jesse and I were part of the Charles Drew Pre-Medical Society.
Shout out Charles Drew.
There you go. Yeah, but so like, you know, when I call home and I tell my parents, you know, like, oh, you know, we had this opportunity to go to like shadow doctors and stuff like that, you know, they're super pumped, they're super excited. And so when I have that sort of perspective of, you know, like, I'm going to be the change maker in my family, that's what really ignites me and keeps me pushing, you know what I mean? When I have these problem sets or these tests coming up and it's really stressful, I think back on, you know, the sacrifice that my parents went through. You know, my parents, they had me at a young age. My mom was, you know, 21, dad was 25. And, you know, just like at that time, you know, they were still learning how to just be themselves and finding who they were, you know, and then on top of that, then having to be a parent, it's a big responsibility. And so what they really instilled in for my sister and I is just, you know, like hard work, discipline, dedication. And they really gave us all of the opportunities that they themselves didn't have. And so I feel like I really cherish that, and I take that with me, my day-to-day life.
I mean, obviously, you mentioned like faith is obviously also very paramount.
Faith is huge.
Right? Like, so
faith is huge.
How do you kind of, you know, go through those moments where, would you say you ever had like a specific moment that you could think back to where you were on the verge of like, okay, I'm about to quit. Like, I don't know if I could do this anymore, or I don't know if this is the right career path for me. Like, and kind of like, how did you overcome that?
Yeah, I think for me, like sort of I think like the big turning point and like just really a pivotal moment in my life was around the time when I was 16. And so this was like sophomore year of high school. This was during the pandemic too. So, during this time, being isolated and at home so much, I had just so much time to think and to like, really reflect, and just a lot at this time in my life, a lot of things were kind of like out of place, there was just trouble with like my family, and like just like my parents, they're kind of going through it. And then I was in like a relationship that just wasn't healthy and it wasn't conducive to, growing as a person. And so during this period of time, I was really reflecting and I was trying to think, like what man do I want to be? Because, at this point in my life, I need to really focus and I need to start building the foundation of, the man that I'm going to be in my early 20s and, moving forward. And I think that really happened when one morning I just took my Bible out of like the cupboard in which it was like collecting dust in, and I opened it up and I started reading the book of Genesis. And I was like, what is the creation story? I've always heard of this, but like what is this, and like really who is God? And when I did that, just like as the days went on, I started reading Psalms and Proverbs, and I was starting to gain this wisdom that I was lacking in my life. And as the time went on, it was crazy, man. I tell you, like guys, like I saw like things in my life change literally overnight. My parents' relationship, like it started suddenly getting better. They were communicating better, which, was something that, I hadn't seen for most of my life. I saw just, like my own mental well-being, I felt like during the pandemic, I felt isolated, and for so much time, I felt like I was just lonely. But when I started reading the Bible and like getting to know who God was, I felt like there was someone else who was with me, and who was helping me, like get through, my high school coursework and just preparing for the next step in my life, which would then go on to be college. So I feel like really just like opening that door with the Lord, I started talking and developing a stronger relationship with my parents. Me and my sister, we would hang out more, and then we started doing like a family like Bible study, and just overnight I just saw just how the Lord was transforming my life and how he was just helping me overcome so many of these obstacles. And then moving forward now into college, like I really wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. Through all the trials and tribulations that I've went through, he's really helped guide me and like steer me away from like the path of destruction, and being distracted and all these sort of things. So I really just say it's like that's my testimony. It's just God has worked in my life in so many ways, and he continues to work in my life.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, man. At the end of the day, it's really how you how can you find yourself, and what is going to push you and guide you
exactly
to succeed in life. And you definitely got that, and that's amazing. That's amazing.
Appreciate it.
At the end of the day. So, I mean, where do you see yourself going now? I mean, again, you're doing your pre-med and everything like that.
Right.
So where do you feel like you, as, a few years down, like, where do you see yourself going?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a junior right now. This upcoming summer, just like continuing to progress in my pre-med journey. So I'll be taking the MCAT this summer, just really preparing for that. And then the following, like my senior spring semester, at the end of it, I'll be then applying to medical school. So it's just crazy to even say that, you know what I mean? It's like, I've had this dream of becoming a doctor since I was maybe like 12, 13 years old. It was like 7th or 8th grade. But to now then be on like the forefront of, like that door is almost open.
You're on the cusp of it all.
It's crazy. Exactly, man. It's crazy. So, wherever the Lord puts me, you know what I mean? I then plan on, matriculating to wherever med school is right for me. Then just continuing to study hard and to be active in the community that I'll then be serving. So I care a lot about just giving back to my own community, you know what I mean? So if I can be back in California, I hope to assist and help other low-income families, to be a physician that not only serves them but advocates for them, really listens to them, and then residency, and then being a full attending physician. That's my goal, and I want to be an orthopedic surgeon.
That's obviously that's a very commendable and obviously very honorable goal to have. I think that I could speak on this also, being pre-med here at Columbia.
Right.
One thing that I think that a lot of pre-meds, and specifically here at Columbia, I don't know how it is at other universities, that I feel like they tend to forget is they tend to get lost within the momentum of their classes and the coursework, where they'll just be like, oh, if I don't get this grade, I'm not going to necessarily have the right grade to apply to medical school, or I'm not going to necessarily have the right application to get this internship or get this letter recommendation. And it's like, I think back to a quote to our very own Dr. Stieg from
Right.
Weill Cornell, who he said that if you're doing things just to check things off a checkbox, then you're not going to be a great doctor. And then Dr. Shaw, who also was at our physician panel from not this year, but the year before, he said that one of the main things that most doctors, they don't necessarily always have, even though they might be the smartest, is empathy. It's like connecting with your patients, right? So it's the personality aspect. And I think specifically here being pre-med, what tends to be, unfortunately, I would say kind of a cause for, obviously, I don't want to say people's downfall, but unfortunately, people's lack of motivation to continue to push forward is because they get lost in a letter grade for a class, rather than focusing on this is the end goal and this is what's good, what's going to take to get there. I mean, we've seen countless people on here who've kind of spoken about their journeys, and like we always say, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey to get there. There's no right or wrong path to becoming a physician. We've seen people that, for instance, we had Dr. Rasig from emergency medicine at Weill Cornell. He spent 9 years as a teacher, right? So he had a whole different career before going to medical school, right? So it's not, there's no one size fits all. And I think that's definitely something that, unfortunately, some pre-meds here, they forget. And I mean, we see, like, for instance, we had Alptu on here and he's a rower, right? Like you obviously you're into rock climbing, you're big on your faith, and you're very motivating around other pre-meds. So it's like everyone has their own journey, and it's not about, like we say, getting there. It's about, pushing yourself forward each day to get to that journey, to get to that end goal, of course.
Absolutely. You do rock climbing?
Yeah, I do rock climbing. Yeah, so I started climbing I think it was like last May, and like over the summer, I kid you not, like probably 4 days a week, I was climbing for like 3 or 4 hours, and like I really fell in love with it. It's a super fun sport. Have either of you guys ever gone?
No, I did rock climbing maybe when I was younger, but I can't remember the last time I did.
What do you be climbing? You just like go to like those facilities, or you actually?
You're up to what, V7?
Yeah,
there you go.
Nature.
Yeah, bro, I've had the opportunity to do both. Yeah, so more typically, I'll go to an indoor climbing gym just because they're more accessible. But over the summer, I did outdoor climbing. There's this mountain near my house called Mount Baldy, and me and one of my buddies, we had another friend who he's like a professional climber, and so he had all the gear, and so we were we had our clip-ons, and we were actually climbing up the mountain and being belayed, and it was crazy. And then there's a style of climbing where you climb over water, but you have no safety, right? It's called over water free soloing. So we got to do that, and dude, that was sick. I was maybe climbing, 16 feet up the mountain. I was like, dang, bro, just looking.
No guard, no harness?
No guard, no harness, bro. Then it's
16 feet.
16 feet, yeah. Then there's this waterfall beneath you. Then it's you fall in, you just jump into the water, bro. It was a trip.
So that's your safety net?
That's your safety, exactly, bro.
So you better not have your phone in your pocket.
Nah, hey, no phone, no nothing. Hey, yeah, then you're just climbing, but it's a trip because your shoes will be a little slippery too, but you're going, dude. It's sick.
Yeah. What's the highest you've ever rock climbed before?
Height or
height wise.
It was probably during that trip, 19 to 22-ish feet above the ground.
That's still pretty high up.
No, it's just crazy because it's when you look down, you're like, dude, I'm really up here. I don't know, God forbid, if any of my because we also did just the normal climbing with the equipment. You're if my safety equipment doesn't work, I'm done.
It's GG.
GG, yeah, I'm done, bro. I'm absolutely done.
I mean, we've definitely seen those Instagram reels of the craziest rock climbers when they're scaling a skyscraper where you're with no gear.
Just no gear,
You're that's insane.
Yeah, bro.
I don't think I could ever do that. I don't think I could ever do that, bro. Flick me up.
Indoor rock climbing, though.
Yeah, but I wouldn't mind trying maybe the indoor stuff.
Yeah, it's I feel like it's a fun version of functional fitness. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It
CrossFit.
definitely looks cool. It definitely is one of those things that will get your adrenaline running.
Most definitely.
Sure. But it's very interesting to. It's a cool activity to do.
Most definitely.
Did you get that from running? Because you also became a runner recently, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So I feel like a pivotal thing in my life has just been fitness overall. I guess more into that I started weightlifting when I was maybe 12 or 13 years old, which people are well, why'd you start so young? And it was I had done martial arts growing up, so for a lot of people their passion was basketball or football. You know what I mean? I liked MMA. If you guys are familiar with UFC, I thought that was sick. I was dude, kickboxing, wrestling.
Nah, UFC is tough, 'cause there's a lot. It's UFC is one of those things where it's everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything. When you're in the octagon, it's a whole different world.
It's not
That's what I'm
boxing,
saying.
It's not just karate. It's everything in one. So.
Exactly. But so yeah, so like I mean at a young age, like my dad saw that like, you know, I really had like a calling for this. So I started with like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Wow. And yeah, so I really fell in love with it. I'd practice a lot, and then my dad was like, you know what, like, you know, it's time to like see, you know, like what level you're at. So I would do tournaments, and like for as long as I did jiu-jitsu, my record was actually undefeated over 3 to 4 years, and I ended up becoming a 3-time national champ.
Whoa.
Middle school, yeah. Cool. Appreciate it, yeah.
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, I just think, you know, one thing that I really appreciate about sports is it really creates that like foundation of like hard work and dedication. You know what I mean? If you're doing a sport, you know, you're committing time and effort to that and over a long period of time, and it just carries over in so many aspects of life, you know. So then like transitioning, you know, weightlifting and, you know, running, like how Jesse was mentioning, transitioning that same mentality then into like my schoolwork, you know what I mean? It's like when I'm studying long hours and I'm feeling, you know, fatigued or tired, you know, I just want to take a break, you know, I really try to tap into like, you know, those times when I was at a long practice, you know, I wanted to give up, but I kept going, you know what I mean? And like I didn't quit. Then it's like, you know what, if I could overcome those challenges, this, you know, this paper I'm writing, I'm gonna get it done. Exactly.
And also, I feel that always goes back to the mentality of like, unfortunately, you just have to like ignore how you feel sometimes, like internally, and you're like, all right, like if I have something to do, I'm gonna do it, whether I like it or not. It's gonna get done. And you have that mentality, your whole life changes. Because I mean, I've told you many times, like when, especially I go on like those long runs, and like I'm all the way.
You're running like half marathons.
I'm all the way. I'm on like the bottom. I'm on like the bottom tip of Manhattan, and it's like 2 a.m, and you don't see anybody outside. You just see the lights turning on and off, and you're like, well, I mean, there's only one way to get back, and it's the same way I got down here.
And it's like, I got to get back home, bro. It's like whether I want to or not, I'm gonna get it done.
Exactly, and you get into the zone of you're just like you know, you're laser focused with a tunnel vision to the point where you know you're gonna get that done. I mean, we definitely see this all the time with Butler Library in Columbia.
No, I mean, you'll see students like working to the point that they just fall asleep, bro. I'll see guys just knocked out on their desk.
I'll never forget
I did this. That's what it takes necessarily sometimes. You gotta put in those long hours and those extra steps in what you're doing to
junior
get
year
over the hump and achieve what you want to achieve.
Absolutely.
You know, as I say, Rome wasn't built in a day.
There you go.
You got to work hard so you can get where you want to get to.
I mean, it's like we said, like, you know, junior year is like that 1 year, especially on the pre-med track, where your grades just matter so much, but also your coursework is intensified because you're taking a lot more advanced courses.
Upper classes,
and I'll never forget that one of the best things that you can do for yourself is time management, because the last thing you want to be doing is like, for instance, but not even.
Can you tell the story? So one, like, this is my sophomore year, Jesse's junior year. I don't know how he did it. I see this guy in the library, and he's he's just locked in. I'm like Jesse, like, what are you working on? He's like, dude, I have a lab report. I need to get this done.
No, it wasn't just a lab report. I had a presentation for my cell biology course with Professor Barnhart. I had a lab report with Anna for Anna's Orgo Lab, and then I had a quiz, an Orgo quiz.
Jeez.
Yeah, I had an organic chemistry quiz with Professor Egdal. So I had all of this all in the same night. And I just remember I was like, well, all right. So I get to the library at like 9 p.m. We start. Because the presentation's a group presentation for cell bio. We start around like 9:15, 9:30, waiting for people to come in. We finish around 11:30, wrap up, boom. So it's 11:30. This time, you know, typically that's around that semester, I was going to bed around, I'm gonna say like 12, 1 a.m. That was typically like my bedtime. So at this point, like 11:30, that's the time for me to leave. But I still got a lab report to do, and I still got to study for a quiz. Man. So I just remember I was like, well, caffeine is always your best friend, but you also don't want to do too much of it. I remember I go to Blue Java right before it closed, and
coffee shop in the library.
Jose's there. Shout out Jose if you're watching this. And he was like, I told him, Jose, I'm gonna have a long night. I was like, give me a large size coffee. I just remember I get back. Kid you not, Mariano probably ran into you maybe around, it was like close to 1 a.m. It was like 12:45 when you saw me. And at that point, I'm just working on my lab report. Probably finished my lab report around 3:30, 4 a.m.
Dude.
And then I had to go back because my references weren't right. So I had to go back and analyze the whole thing. So by that time, it's like 5:36 a.m. and I still got to study for the quiz.
I don't miss it.
I studied for the quiz for like an hour and a half. So it's like 7:30 a.m. Go to Ferris, get breakfast. Now it's like 8 a.m., went back, showered. It's like 9 a.m. And I'm like, well, I got class in an hour. I'm not going to go to sleep for an hour. Like I just got class. So I went back to the library, studied an extra 30 minutes, reread my lab report, submit, done, checked, boom, class 10 a.m. 10:10, I had the presentation. And I'll never forget that day, it was cell bio at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
As soon as I got a cell bio, I have orgo. So I had my quiz right after my presentation.
Man.
And then after that, I remember I had orgo lab that same day. So it was just back to back classes. I'll never forget one. As soon as I had like I crashed in my bed, like at the end of the day, it's like 10 p.m. I was just like, out like a light, because just imagine going through all of that in that time period. And I'll never forget that what you told me, it really clicked. I remember what you told me like that night. You were like, bro, Jesse, you got this, like, don't worry. And I was like, yeah. And I'm like, I know it's just all internal, and it's just like, you're the only person in the library at 4 a.m. and you're there from the night before, and I'm seeing people arrive into the library like 6, 7 a.m. People that I just already got their night's sleep. I'm like, I haven't been to bed yet.
Yeah.
So it's moments like that where you realize and you start analyzing, like, okay, it's all internal. It's all like, how are you gonna get over the hump?
And I feel like that's the hardest thing, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, when you have something to get done, like people either get it done or they crumble, you know what I mean? They fold, and it's like, you gotta have that internal resolve. I mean, think back on this, right, Rafael? I mean, you already graduated. It's like, you're probably like, yo, these days are over. But but when you're an undergrad, like, I'm sure you had those days where it's like, you know, like, whether I want to or not, like, this is something I gotta get done.
Yeah, for sure. I remember when I was in there. Again, I didn't do no pre-med, but I did my bachelor's in economics.
That's a hard
I'll
major,
never forget the papers that had to get done.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And the projects had to get completed.
Absolutely.
And staying up 3, 4, 5 in the morning because we knew that on the next day it has to get all submitted.
Yeah, you gotta have it no matter what.
Yeah, and even, I mean, in turn, yes, you're gonna have those days and nights when you have to hustle and study and work. But like we said it before, it's all about your time management, because like a lot of times we're in those positions because we got like 2 weeks that we could have done it all, and we chose not to because of X, Y, and Z.
And that's the funny thing too. It's like certain people, they just work better under pressure.
Some people, it's true. That definitely is.
And I felt like being in that moment where I had all that piled up on myself. I mean, there's no one to blame but yourself, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. Like, sure, I had prior commitments. Sure, I had a family emergency that came up during the semester. But it's like, at the end of the day, it's really up to you to make sure you get your tasks done. And
that's just life, you know what I mean? It's like,
you got to be the biggest motivator for yourself.
Yeah. It's you versus you.
Always that, you versus you.
Absolutely. No, I was gonna say, you know, like, that's life, you know what I mean? And it's just, you know, no matter what, like, I feel like this is why you gotta have that mentality going forth, you know, because like even when you're established in your career, you know, you might, you know, some random event may have popped up that just like completely throws off your schedule for the rest of the week, you know what I mean? And like, you know, like, life happens, and it's like, you got to figure out a way to, you know, like, okay, even though this new obstacle approached me, how am I going to overcome it? Because it's like, I have to overcome it.
And that was the thing, like, when I finally got my grades back, like, and I did really well on my presentation, that quiz, my lab report, you know, and I was just telling myself, like, well, you know, typically speaking, like, I'm not the type of person to promote sleep deprivation because I always say, like, you know, sleep is, and your health is wealth, right? So you need sleep. Like, that's a fact. Mm-hmm. And the amount of times we abuse it, and it causes, you know, long-term pain and suffering down the road. But unfortunately, there are times where there are just certain things that are just out of your control at that point, right? Where it's either, right, you can, you know, get your sleep that night, but then you have all this stuff piled up, and now you're creating a burden for future assignments you're going to have, and everything just continues to build up on itself, right?
Yeah, nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect.
So, and nights like that, it's like you have to, what the main thing that kept motivating me, I remember I opened up my computer, and when I was typing, because my background, for people that don't know, people that see my computer, I have a picture of myself with my grandma. When I was like about 4 years old, and I, you know, kind of put my screen to where it was covering me, so I was just focusing on my work, and I had her looking at me the whole time. And I was like, she was an educator, she was a principal, she was a teacher back in DR, and I was like, you know, we do these things, like you said, for our families, right? You know, being the first in your family to go to college, like, you have that weight on your shoulder that you have to perform for them. Absolutely. It's like you have a win, or you have a must-win mentality that I am going to make sure that, you know, I get into medical school. I get these grades I need to get, no matter what. There is no plan B. There is no I'm going to lose. Because you have that mentality, you're like, you can't really lose. It's you versus you at the end of the day. And for people that obviously, you know, they obviously go down different routes, right? We'd see it. People might change, but that's because they found interest in something else, or maybe that wasn't the right path for them. And that's completely okay as well. Because at the end of the day, as long as you find what's right for you, you're already making your family proud, and you're doing what's the best thing you can do for yourself, which is making sure that you're not going to find a job, a 9-to-5, that you're going to be upset about 20 years down the line and say, I regret studying this in college. That's the worst thing you can have when you're older, is having that regret. So
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, like you said, Mariano, it's always just consistency. That's all it really is.
Consistency and dedication, absolutely. And it's like, you know, these are like, I mean, consistency, you can kind of develop that, right? But like, you know, that dedication, you know, that's something that comes from within. You know what I mean? That's something, you know, I feel like life experiences, that's what really builds dedication. And you know, when you can have moments in your life where you're like, dang, you know what, I overcame this hardship. Let me allow that to fuel me to overcome, you know, this next challenge.
To the next level.
Exactly.
Sure. I mean, I mentioned it before, but again, I went to San Francisco, California, a few years back. I went by myself. It was one of the best experiences ever.
Right.
And mostly because I pushed myself to do that, do something that at that point I had never done. And
you stepped out of your comfort zone, I imagine, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And with that, changed my mentality and how I do things moving forward and everything like that. And personally for me, I mean, I love New York, East Coast baby for life. I will say San Francisco is a pretty place. I've never been to Los Angeles. I've heard things, right? But I mean, what would you say? I mean,
go ahead.
Someone that's never been to California, to the south side of California,
In-N-Out better than
what would you
Shake Shack.
recommend?
Yeah, like recommend in terms of like things to do or like sights to see. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So I think the thing with California is we kind of get a bad rap because of Hollywood and, you know, all the influencers. I promise you guys that is not all of California, okay? That's a little portion, okay? But yeah, I mean, so, you know, right now, like, so I actually grew up in a suburb maybe 40 minutes outside of LA, so I can't properly claim it as my home, you know?
Okay.
But so we're gonna represent Rancho Cucamonga for any of you guys watching. If you know, you know. But yeah, so I mean, like what I think is nice about California is just the proximity to a lot of things, right? So when I grew up, I was 40 minutes away from the beach, you know, 20 to 30 away from the mountains, and then, you know, like 20 to 30 away from like the desert, right? Yeah. So it's like, you know, if you're someone who likes activities and like likes to do different things, if you like to, you know, maybe ski or, you know, like ride quads in the desert, you know, go to the beach, do sports like that, like it's a wonderful place. And I would say, let me see. Oh, and I would say the best Mexican food in the country is SoCal. Now, yeah, there's gonna be Texans. There's gonna be Texans.
Don't get no on here. No one's gonna get upset.
Do not believe them, yo. It is California, hands down, has the best Mexican food.
He brought it up earlier about the Shake Shack and the In-N-Out. I had In-N-Out when I was out there. I'm very honest, bro. Thing was nothing crazy. It was not everybody and their mother always. I didn't know.
Overhypes it. I mean,
I will tell you my personal opinion from a man that lives in the city, New York. It was nothing to scream about. Like, honestly, like.
Here's my question for you, though.
Tell me.
Okay,
what you get on the menu?
No, here's this. What do you pay for okay, when you go to Shake Shack and you buy a burger, fries, and a drink, how much are you paying?
Over $20.
Something like that. I don't go to Shake Shack too much, but yeah, somewhere around
like
there.
20, 22, right?
Yeah, 22, like 23,
All right,
yeah.
So now, here's the thing, right? At In-N-Out, you could get a double burger, fries, a large drink, and a strawberry milkshake, $11.
Okay, that's cool. That's fine. But my thing is, like, people play it as if In-N-Out is like this wow masterpiece of a fast food chain that everybody needs to try.
See, so we were talking about this.
I think it's amazing. Hey, the fries are fresh potatoes too. You know what I mean? You're not getting these generic.
All I'm gonna say, we were talking about this the other day, and all I remember, I was like, "Listen, Mariano, I know what you're saying, but your gas prices in your towns are way more expensive than New York. You're gonna pay more money to get to In-N-Out.
I can't argue that.
Then we're here, you pay more money for your food, but you're paying less to get there for your food. So like it cancels out, I guess.
Hey, that's fair. Hey, I'll say though, the weather in California year round though, hey.
Yeah, no, that's nice.
That's true. At least we're not getting the winter storms that we get.
I mean, I love me some winter. I mean, I'm a December baby. My birthday's almost here, December 9.
Oh, wait. Yeah. Yo, my birthday is 8 days after. It's the 17th.
Ah.
Yo, that's it. Yeah.
Happy birthday to these two.
There you go. You want to get us a gift? You already know. December 9, December.
The 17th. Hey.
My half birthday just passed, November 30th.
Nobody cares.
Yeah. What is a half birthday?
Get out of here, bro. It's all about us now.
Hey, shout out to us May babies, May 30th. Set the timer to it.
Okay. But okay, that's cool. Yeah. I mean, it's a different vibe in overall when it comes to like just. I mean, when you travel, you get a different perspective of anything. Have you traveled anywhere else outside of just New York and Cali?
Yeah, actually, so I've been to Puerto Rico, which is like a vacation, and it was just really nice to just be like in a tropical area.
Shout out Puerto Rico.
Yeah, you're Puerto Rican, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. You're Puerto Rican Dominican. That's what's up. Yeah, so Puerto Rico was awesome. During winter break, so from January 11th to the 18th, I'm going to be in Honduras on a medical mission trip.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, you were telling me about this.
Yeah, so no, I'm looking forward to that. So gonna go over there with a group of other students for this program called GMA, and essentially what our goal is we're gonna evangelize. We're gonna talk about God and just like what His promise is to all of us, to the people in Honduras. And we're also going to engage in like vocational Bible studies for the kids. So, teaching the kids about the Bible, teaching them about Jesus, you know what I mean? And, what He means to their life. And then also I'll be shadowing some doctors. So there's a free clinic over there.
Okay.
So we're going to be seeing patients and, I'll have the opportunity to, just to really get like a non-biased sort of outlook on, how healthcare is in other countries. I feel like the way that, media portrays, healthcare, and especially like Central American or like Southern American countries, it really like, how do I say it? You kind of only get one lens of it, but to actually be there, you know what I mean, and to see, like the relationships that patients have with their physicians, and just to see how medicine is done. I think that for like my own development, as a future physician, it will give me more insight and just learning ways to really like reach your patients and to understand them, you know what I mean, and just the different health disparities that they're dealing with. I feel like it's going to be a great opportunity.
No, that's awesome. That's really cool, and it's like you said, people like to shine light on one particular aspect of something.
Absolutely.
In any topic or any genre or any space.
Absolutely.
And you don't really know what it's like unless you're really there, and you
unless
can
you
really get your
it,
real experience and get your own make a valid opinion or your own position on what it's like. So that's amazing. That's fun. How long is it going to be for?
It'll be for a week. A week. Yeah. So
is it in this month of December?
It'll be in January. Yeah. So January 11th to
exactly.
January 11th to the 18th. So like just like right before I come back to school for the spring semester. Yeah.
See, I mean, that's always very, I want to say like motivating, obviously, and inspiring when you hear, you want to obviously go and, you're speaking to children about your faith. But you're also at the same time, you're learning a complete different version of a healthcare system.
Absolutely.
Because I think obviously we're very blessed and honored, and sometimes we take it, a lot of times I want to say we take it for granted. The healthcare system we have here. I mean, you go to other countries like Rafi, I'm pretty sure like when you've been to DR, right? Like, and every time I've been to DR and I've gone to the clinics over there, and you see it's a very, very much different system that we have here. Wait times are a lot longer. Sometimes there's no receptionist. Sometimes they don't have some basic supplies. Like I mentioned, like when my mom was a resident over there in DR, like there were sometimes they didn't even have a basic syringe to inject insulin, right? And those are, basic life supplies that we take for granted here. And you're like, oh, syringe, like anyone could find that. But, in these countries, unfortunately, it's very unfortunate they don't have certain access to certain materials. And I think it's obviously very, motivating and inspiring to hear that. Obviously, you want to kind of see that realm. So
most definitely, and that's what I was gonna ask you. Like, so because you two both have like the experience of like seeing clinics and like the DR, right? Yeah. And then I believe it was your last episode. You guys had the previous president,
yes. Dr. Donald Fernandez.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So like in that conversation, like like after speaking with him and like thinking about just like the allocation of like resources, what do you think? Like moving forward, are like some ways possibly that like especially in healthcare, the DR will improve over time, just with the different initiatives going on in the country. And
I think that obviously when he was on and he was kind of speaking about like what he did during his terms, obviously he had an emphasis on modernization. And so there's a lot of times where you go inside these clinics and you see like a lot of their systems are outdated, a lot of the materials they're using are outdated. So like ensuring that obviously the economy is booming in the tourism sector, but also making sure that also there are certain areas of infrastructure that could get better, right? So I'll give you an example. I remember this is during the pandemic. Remember you guys for those of you watching, if you guys remember when you travel and you have to get COVID tested, right? Before you come back into the U.S. So right before that, my uncle, he would drive my mom and myself to get our COVID test to a clinic. and and you wouldn't even believe it's a clinic from the outside. It would be like a cobblestone house with like a zinc like a zinc roof, right? And then on the outside it had like marker written clinic on the outside, and you're like, this is a clinic. And you know, in your head, you think like a clinic is like, City MD on the outside, lights and like big door frames. But
they're like in your face.
Exactly.
Right.
But over there, it's not like that, sometimes, right? And so I think that what he was saying, what I think was very interesting, was like, he was saying like, obviously we've modernized and we've kind of created infrastructure in certain areas, but obviously there's always room for improvement. And so I think going back to like with like the healthcare sector specifically, there's always certain ways that the Dominican Republic can always kind of focus in on not just making sure we have basic materials and supplies, but also making sure that our facilities are up to date, right? Like doing inspections when they need to, right? So there's certain ways that definitely, I think, Rafi, you could also speak to this as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, modernization, I think, and also too, teaching them more about, not necessarily like modern medicine, but just giving them more resources to learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
And find newer ways and faster ways, more efficient ways to help patients in whatever that they need, and just so everybody's more on I don't say like an even playing field, but more specifically like intellectually.
Yeah, right.
They are on the same line, right?
Having those same opportunities and resources
and stuff like that, so that whenever a situation occurs in some clinic or hospital or what have you, all of them are better prepared for those situations that may come, whether it's in that specific country like the DR or in other places as well.
Right.
Because medicine in general, like
absolutely,
there's a variety of ways you can go and combat certain diseases or illnesses or whatnot, right? But at the end of the day, there's a process through it all.
Right.
And if everybody kind of had that same foundation, I think that would help tremendously.
You also think back to also the educational aspect, right? Where modern medicine isn't just about, it's not just about you necessarily practicing, but it's also learning about the different roles of different pathogens, different diseases, symptoms, illnesses, etc. And so that emphasis on teaching people from a young age, like these are certain illnesses that can be prevented, right? I mean, obviously when you're in a country that's near the equator, there are certain tropical diseases that are more prevalent than the US. So giving that educational aspect early on, and even like during the pandemic as well, like the same thing where, teaching people about how serious COVID was and like why cases were rising, because people were continuing to hang out and not necessarily like take the pandemic that seriously. So I think there's always room for improvement necessarily from an educational standpoint. But
definitely.
I think that's it's almost all the time we have for today. So this was a great conversation.
I love about medicine, about rock climbing.
Yes,
I might have to climb some rocks with you, bro.
Anytime. Let's go climbing.
We can rock climb in Cali.
Come to Cali, get some in and out. Exactly. You already know.
But at the end of the day, it's always East Coast, Best Coast.
The East Coast is the best coast.
This is propaganda. This is East Coast propaganda.
No, but I will say, I went to San Francisco, and I could honestly see myself living out there, but New York is still king. So
I don't want to say, but I can see myself staying on the East Coast.
There you go.
Throwing on me.
As always, guys, defy all the odds, overcome everything. It's your boy Rafa.
It's your boy Jesse. We'll have all the links down in the description down below if you want to contact Mariano.
Yes, sir. Peace out, guys, and keep prospering.
There you go. Defy all the odds.
Deuces.
Yes, sir.